The 2024 NFL Draft is in the books, so how did the Raiders do? That plus a whole lot more comes up on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for April 29th, 2024.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won, and won, and won, and won, and won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. To get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available, as always, if you're giving us a look on YouTube, thank you. We appreciate that. The support on YouTube has been fantastic in a major way, and that's because of you, Raider Nation, and my man Ari. Ari does a great job each and every day getting us up on YouTube, looking good, sounding good, puts in a lot of great work. So many thanks to my man Ari. Check him out on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254, and we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line 707-654-4693. Your calls and texts will come up in segment number 3 of today's show. Plenty of feedback, all NFL draft related from over the weekend, as you can imagine. So we'll get as many calls and texts in coming up in segment number 3. In segment number 1 and 2, we'll just do basically news and notes, what the Raiders were able to come away with, right? All their picks that they got, rounds 1 through 7, all 8 picks. They made no trades, plus who they've announced and signed so far as undrafted free agents. We'll hear a little bit from Tom Telesco, let you know where the Raiders stand as far as salary cap space goes and how much they have right now and how much they'll get post June 1st. So we got a lot to get to on today's show. We'll go ahead and jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor, which is Monopoly Go. And I've admitted it a lot of times, you know it, I've got a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go. It's the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. Join with your friends right now. Download Monopoly Go free on the App Store or Google Play. And let's jump into it. I'm back from Detroit, and Raider Nation, let me tell you, I could not be more happy to be back from Detroit. Not that Detroit's a bad place, but Detroit is still Detroit, and it's nothing like being at home, sleeping in your own bed, taking a shower in your own shower. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing better than to be at home. And oh man, that Eastern time zone, it works magic against me. It's like bad magic, right? It's bad juju with me. And man, basically having to get not removed from the first day of the draft from Thursday night, but from being there in the actual draft room, or not draft room, but in the media room where the Radio Row is at, and work until the wee hours of the morning to have a lady come by and saying, sir, this room was supposed to close at 1 a.m. And I'm like, okay, that's no problem, because I'm not knowing what time it is. She's like, yeah, it's like 2:30 right now. I was like, oh, so you're saying I got to go? Yeah, you got to go. All right, no problem. So, to being in a city that the power went out, and I tried to do a 3-hour radio show with no power, and somehow I pulled that off. So, yeah, it was an adventure, as it always is an adventure when I'm on the road, but glad to be back in the home studio and recapping what the Raiders were able to do over the course of the draft weekend. Of course, they made 8 selections. They didn't make any trades, something that Tom Telesco, we had already kind of known that his tendencies, he had never traded back. And when he does trade up, it's not, really a big trade where he doesn't make some big jump from a certain position to another position. Made no trades over the course of the weekend. They made 8 selections, the first round, second round, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and 2 in the 7th. So we'll go over all these guys and talk about what they can bring to the team, how early they can contribute, and we'll use the help of Dane Brugler's The Beast that he put out in The Athletic. He had 257 players that were selected over the draft weekend were featured in The Beast. So Dane Brugler does a fantastic job. I reference The Beast quite a bit just because it's very accurate. His overall grades are very accurate based off of where players were drafted, not only by the Raiders, but across the NFL. I think Dane Brugler is one of the sharpest minds in the game right now, so love to reference his work all the time. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. First round pick, we've talked a lot about him. Brock Bowers, a tight end out of Georgia, who's the number 1 ranked tight end, and it wasn't even close. He was a guy that, my bad, wasn't on my radar. Didn't think that the Raiders had an opportunity to get him at 13. Didn't think that the Raiders really needed him, but, after a little bit of time to sit on it, think about it, and realizing what he could bring to the table, realize how good of a pick that really was, but just was a surprise because, again, it wasn't on anybody's radar. Nobody had called in, texted in, tweeted in. I hadn't talked about it. None of the guests that I had on my show, radio show, or the podcast had ever talked about, hey, Brock Bowers would be a good addition for the Raiders. But He is. And according to Dane Brugler from the Beast, overall, Bowers is an explosive pass catcher who creates mismatches all over the field with speed, ball skills, and competitive edge, has NFL star potential in the mold of George Kittle if he lands with a play caller prepared to feature his unique and versatile talent, and gives him a first-round grade, no doubt about it. And that's the biggest thing, I think, with Brock Bowers and the Raiders. Can Luke Getsy get the most out of him? Right? I mean, don't have a Ferrari and don't treat him like a Ferrari. Right? This dude could do so many different things. Do it. Right? Don't just, use him as a basic tight end, because he's not a basic tight end. You have a nice 1-2 punch right now with him and Michael Mayer. I think that could be a great kind of, Hernandez and Gronk style that the Patriots used to use. And it's funny, we talked a lot about, double tight ends when Josh McDaniels was the head coach of the Raiders, just because it made sense. But this literally could be a really good 1-2 punch between Bowers and Mayer, and they're both really young. So excited about the potential, but it's going to be on Luke Getsy to get the most out of him, because, again, he can do so many things. So we don't have to spend a lot of time with Bowers. I think we all realize what he brings to the table. In the second round, the Raiders went to Oregon and grabbed their center guard, Jackson Powers Johnson, or JPJ, as a lot of people are calling him. And, man, he's a guy that I was excited about when the Raiders drafted him, just because I knew how highly rated he was, and a guy that could easily have gone in the first round. He was a standout center, but has the ability to play guard. And I thought this was a really cool little tip of the cap by the Raiders, and this is according to Ian Rappaport from NFL Network. He said, before the Raiders selected Jackson Powers Johnson, who played center in college, at number 44, they contacted current center Andre James to let him know and to tell him that James was their center. A nice touch by Las Vegas. I did think that was really cool, just to give him a call, not that they had to, and be like, hey, look, we're drafting this guy right now, but he's not to replace you. He's going to be a guard. And that's how he was announced, as a guard. According to Dane Brugler, he was the number 2 ranked center in the Beast, and he said overall Powers Johnson's inexperience is reflected in his technique, but he offers a fantastic combination of size, athleticism, and toughness with the skill set that translates to both center and guard. His game reminds me of Ryan Kelly, who won the Remington Award at Alabama before becoming a first-round pick in 2016, and he had a first and second round grade. Obviously, the Raiders got him in the second round, thought it was a really good pick. He's a guy that brings some nasty. He brings some nasty. He's going to play through the whistle. He's a tough dude and a good, nice addition to the Raiders' offensive line. And what I really like about it is you have 3 dudes that are bona fide centers on that offensive line that will probably be on the field at the same time. This dude's a starter, right? You got 2 starters in the first 2 rounds. So well done by Tom Telesco. That's what you're looking for, as starters. But you have Dylan Parham playing the left guard spot. He's a guy that can slide into the center. Obviously, Andre James is the center. And now you've got JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson, that could play the center position as well. If James gets injured, you've got opportunities. If James somehow isn't with the team, past this next year, then you have an option of putting Parham there or JPJ at that center position. The versatility is big time. I think that's a really good get by Telesco, and I think it's going to be a really good addition to that offensive line. Again, a guy that brings a lot of nasty. So I'm excited about what you'll see from JPJ, and you're starting to see the Raiders' offensive line come together. Now you have Colton Miller that's locked in at the left tackle position. You've got Dylan Parham that you can slide in and keep him at the left guard spot. Andre James, he's obviously the center. Now you've got JPJ. He could be that right guard. You can put him in that position or flip-flop him. Maybe you could put him at left guard and put Dylan Parham at right guard. Whatever you want to do, you've got the versatility. Still got a question at that right tackle position. What are you going to do there? But I do like the versatility and like to see how everything's coming together. And don't forget, the Raiders signed Cody Whitehair as a free agent who has experience in Luke Getsy's offense. He could be a guy, if worse, is, depth at that left guard position. So you're starting to see that offensive line, something we talked a lot about, start to come together. Third round, offensive tackle Delmar Glaze out of Maryland. Dane Brugler had him listed at 132 overall as far as just players, and he was his 11th ranked guard. So he had him listed as a guard as opposed to offensive tackle, but the Raiders did announce him as a tackle, and Brugler says Glaze's over-aggressive tendencies and lack of explosive traits show on an island. But with his size, strength, and smooth movements, a move to guard could be what is best for his NFL future. With continued development, he'll compete for starting snaps and gave him a 4th round grade. The Raiders got him in the 3rd round. So that clearly was a reach. It's going to happen, right? Every pick's not going to be fantastic. Every pick's not going to be spot on and according to all the different grades. But a guy that, again, attacks the trenches, a guy that could play multiple positions, guard or tackle. Who knows what he'll end up being with the Raiders. He'll probably end up sliding inside the guard if they don't see what they like from him from the tackle position. But, again, we'll add some more depth at the very least to what the Raiders have got going on. And I've seen where some anticipate him being a swing tackle. So maybe a guy like Thayer Munford does get comfortable at that right tackle position, plays that, and now you have Glaze as a swing tackle. So there's multiple different ways that you could use him, and the Raiders could be looking at him to be used. But that'll be for another day. They'll figure that out once training camp comes together. And, of course, they're thinking about it right now. But, again, Tom Telesco attacking the trenches. So that's probably the first pick that was somewhat of a reach, but you also knew it was a need for what the Raiders have going on. So there you go. Delmar Glaze, offensive tackle out of Maryland, the 11th ranked guard, according to Dane Brugler, in the Beast. So coming up in segment number 2, we'll get to the 4th, 5th, 6th, and the multiple 7th round picks. Plus, we'll talk about the undrafted free agents that the Raiders signed and announced, and we'll hear from Tom Telesco as well. We got a lot coming up on today's show. We'll do that again. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the show, and the first one is FanDuel, and it's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. I don't know if you saw the Golden Knights on Saturday night. I was watching that, and, man, they went to overtime against the Dallas Stars. I thought they had a chance to win that one and really take a commanding lead in the series, but they ended up losing in overtime, so they're actually going to be playing again tonight, and they want to take that 3-1 lead over the Dallas Stars. The NBA playoffs, watched them all weekend long once I finally got home from Detroit, and, man, it was just nice to be able to sit back and relax and watch some hoops, right? Well, baseball's in full swing as well. FanDuel is your best place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots, home runs, slam dunks, three-pointers, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook. I also want to tell you about Game Time. I talked about the NBA, right? Well, Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA. Makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. Great last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets, and the app is fantastic. There's so many different things that you can use the app for. You can see those last-minute deals. You can see the flash deals, zone deals. Save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time actually choose your seats. They've got the all-in prices, seat views. You can actually get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you ever buy your tickets. Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Right now, just take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account and the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, continuing to go over player by player what the Raiders were able to do NFL draft weekend. The 4th round cornerback Cameron Richardson out of Mississippi State, according to Dane Brugler in The Athletic, the 18th ranked cornerback. He said, overall, Richardson's inability to consistently make plays on the football is a red flag. His size and speed traits, ascending talent are tools that defensive coaches will want to develop in the NFL. He projects as a developmental press man cornerback, 4th and a 5th round grade. The Raiders got him in the 4th round. And if you remember, and you've been listening to this show or watching this show for a while, remember there was a player last year out of Mississippi State that I was a big fan, a corner that I was a big fan of. That was Emmanuel Forbes. The Washington Commanders ended up taking him in the 1st round, and he didn't do very well. His rookie year was nothing to write home about, right? I don't know what he's going to do his next year, but he did not do very well in the NFL, but he had a lot of ball production in college. 14 interceptions, 6 of them he took back for pick sixes. Like, he had the ability in college, and in the NFL, something was just not clicking for him, so he's going to have to bounce back. But he's the exact opposite of Richardson. Richardson is a guy that is able to get a lot of PBUs, a ton of PBUs in college, but he just didn't have any ball production. And for me, and a coach told me this a long time. Matter of fact, Coach Snow is a defensive coordinator at Baylor at the time on Matt Rule's staff, and he said, Q, if a guy makes plays in high school, there's a chance he's going to make plays in college. If he makes plays in college, there's a good chance he's going to make plays in the NFL because it's just his natural, it's kind of his natural instincts, and it's second nature to him. If a guy doesn't make plays in college, most likely, yeah, you're right, he's not going to make plays in the NFL. So Richardson, to me, is a guy that's intriguing because of his size and his speed, so he has a chance to develop. But the fact that he doesn't get the ball, doesn't create takeaways and go the other way with it is a I don't want to say a red flag like Dane Brugler said in The Beast, but it is one of those things just to be aware of, right? He's not the guy that's going to become a ball hawk, but you know what you got in Jack Jones. You know what you got in Nate Hobbs. Jacorian Bennett's going into his second year. Brandon Faison is the guy that they brought back as a free agent. Now you've got Richardson to add to the mix as well. His size and speed will help him a lot, right? He'll be able to run with the best of them out there. But as far as just getting his hands on the ball and taking it and going the other way, most likely that's not going to happen. But he's your 4th-round pick, DeCameron Richardson out of Mississippi State. 5th-round pick. This is probably my favorite pick out of all of them, to be honest. Linebacker Tommy Eichenberg out of Ohio State. He was the 5th-ranked linebacker, according to Dane Brugler in The Athletic. Overall, Eichenberg isn't a proven playmaker in coverage, but he understands pursuit angles and displays outstanding key read flow skills versus the run. He has the talent, football character, and feel for the game to earn a starting job during his NFL rookie training camp. 3rd and 4th-round grade, according to Dane Brugler. The Raiders got him in the 5th round. I just like this pick because he just seems like a Raider. Right, that linebacker position, we know what the Raiders have in Robert Spillane. I feel like Eichenberg is Robert Spillane-like, right? Except for he's a young dude coming out and he can learn from a Robert Spillane. Like, I'm excited about that linebacking room now. Excited about what Spillane could do year 2 with the silver and black, but I just think Eichenberg is a different dude. I think this is going to be, and look, I'm just saying this right now, right? I mean, these guys have not even touched the field, but this very well easily could end up being everyone's favorite player out of this draft class. I know Bowers is fantastic. Right, he's going to be a hell of a player. It's up to Luke Getsy to get the most out of him. But Eichenberg, and his natural instincts, a guy that is a tackling machine, a guy that's got that dog in him that's just, I want to say plays angry, right? I just think that he has an opportunity to really be, a guy that Antonio Pierce kind of puts his arms around and takes him under his wing and turns him into a hell of a player. And you've got Robert Spillane. Of course, Divine Diablo is there as well, and Divine is still trying to, become that guy. I just think that there's a lot to like about Tommy Eichenberg. So right there, he's clearly my favorite player out of this Raiders draft class. 6th round running back Dylan Labie out of New Hampshire. He was the 15th ranked running back, a guy that was definitely not on my radar. Thought that the Raiders were going to select a running back. Didn't know it was going to be him. Hadn't even thought about him coming out of New Hampshire. But my man Dane Brugler from The Athletic had a 6th round grade on him. That's where the Raiders got him. He said overall Labie might not be a full-time running back or receiver in the NFL, but he has the multi-dimensional skill set that overlaps both positions and offers value on special teams. The Danny Woodhead comparison is a little on the nose, but it's best shows his versatile and his talent. So there you go. They got a running back out of New Hampshire in the 6th round. I know that Vinny Bonsignore said he felt very Austin Eckler-like. I think that's a little rich, but maybe the Danny Woodhead comparisons is a little bit better. And you know what the Raiders already have in their running back room with Zamir White, of course, Alexander Madison signed him as a free agent. You add Labie in there as well, and he can, do some things. So interested to see how they use him. They've got Amir Abdullah in the room too. So there's a lot of running backs in that room. Let's just see how those guys could develop and what they could turn into. But of course, his special team skill set's going to get him on the field early, and that's a good thing. 7th round pick, their first 7th round pick, they had 2 of them. Safety Trey Taylor out of Air Force, 23rd ranked safety. I said that I thought Eichenberg was my favorite player in the draft class. This very well be my favorite player, my second favorite player, Trey Taylor. This is a guy that's got a lot of ball production, right? He's a guy that, and he's Ed Reed's, he's relatives with Ed Reed. Doesn't mean he's going to turn into Ed Reed, but he was a 23rd ranked safety, according to Dane Brugler. 7th round pick or a preferred free agent's the grade that he gave him. He said, overall, Taylor is quicker than fast and might have a tough time covering NFL receivers from the post, but his instinctive ball skills and feel for route concepts can help him overcome average range. Reminds me of a lot of DeMar Hamlin when he was coming out of Pittsburgh. So I just like the ability to go get the ball. Actually, when he was selected, I had just got home from Detroit, and I heard Mel Kiper breaking down Trey Taylor and talking about his ball instincts. He just has that natural. Now, he's got to develop a lot. He might not even make the team as a 7th round pick, right? But as far as guys that I kind of like, I like him because of the ball skills. So we'll see if he makes the team, but it sounded really good. And one note, he is coming from Air Force, but he is eligible to play in the NFL immediately. So if he does make the Raiders roster, he could be eligible to play right away. Doesn't have to worry about his any of his military responsibilities that he might have. And finally, their last pick, their second 7th round pick, cornerback MJ Devonshire out of Pittsburgh, 25th ranked cornerback. Says overall, Devonshire is more of an aggressive athlete than true instinctive ball hawk, but his linear burst, speed, and length helps him make plays and coverage. He's a developmental player with the tools to play man, zone, and special teams. Gave him a 5th and a 6th round grade, and the Raiders got him in the 7th round. So as you could tell by all the players that we've gone over and talked about and the grades that Dane Brugler gave him, the Raiders are pretty spot on. they drafted these guys kind of where they were expected to be drafted, and I feel like that they've got a draft class that makes sense. Now, I've seen a lot of different publications. Oh, the Raiders got an A, they got a B minus, they got a B plus. We're not going to know what the overall grade is on these guys for a couple years as they develop and you start to see what they are in the NFL. But to me, when you look at who they drafted, where they drafted, they went very defensive heavy. I don't think that was a surprise, right? I mean, you think about who their head coach is, Antonio Pierce. They got 1, 2, 3, 4. They got 4 players that are defensive guys, right? A tight end, center, offensive line. They had to address that. Go get a running back, right? But they got guys that could fill different positions that they need. And, they're just, again, able to come with a draft class that sounds like, it looks on paper, looks like it makes a lot of sense. Something that it wasn't like, oh, man, that was a bad reach, or what was Tom Telesco thinking when he drafted that guy? I think they felt very comfortable with who they took. Who did they not take? No quarterback. No quarterback was taken at all. Well, here's Tom Telesco following the whole draft. Matter of fact, Saturday night, he met with the media at the Intermountain Health Performance Center and was asked about, matter of fact, Vinny Bonsignore asked him about not taking a quarterback.
Curious, was there any thought about a quarterback, in these last 2 days?
On the third day? No. Really not on the second day either. First day, yes, but not after that.
Is that just where the evaluation kind of...
Yeah, I mean, if we felt there was a quarterback out there that was better than what we had or could potentially be better, certainly would have done something about it, but just that didn't line up.
So there was Tom Telesco talking about they didn't even think about taking a quarterback after the first round. 6 quarterbacks went in the top 12, which was amazing to see that, right? That just doesn't happen. And after that, the Raiders were like, yeah, we're out. And I love the fact that it's something we talked about, because we talked about quarterback a lot on the show, of course. But I love the fact that they didn't just grab a quarterback just to get one. Hey, there's not a quarterback in this draft that we look at after the guys that have already been selected that are better than what we have in the room already. So why are we going to go and do it? I'm glad that they didn't just grab a quarterback just to grab a quarterback. As I mentioned on Friday's show, Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew will be the quarterbacks in 2024, right? It sounds like Aiden O'Connell's probably the leader in the clubhouse because he was last year's starter, but of course they'll have that competition from Gardner Minshew. One more soundbite here, and this is from Tom Telesco talking about if philosophy played a role in making no trades during the draft.
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, if you were in there, second round, we were trying to go up pretty hard. Even the fourth round, we came back in, we were trying to go up. Yeah, there's a little bit of philosophy behind it that I wouldn't want to get into here. Maybe down the road I will, but it's certainly not a philosophy of, hey, we're not trading up or down. That's not it at all. But the one thing we do, we really strip the board down pretty heavily in trying to increase our odds in a player that we take. So we try and, mitigate some risk by making sure that we take some players off the board that just whatever playing ability, scheme-wise, character, medical, could impact their odds of making our team. So, but no, we were in a lot of discussions to move up, move down, but most times we felt like when our pick was up, we felt good about the player that was there. And in the end, you got to execute the pick and, trying to find the guy that can have the best chance to help you win. So that's how it worked out this weekend.
So philosophy a little bit, didn't want to really get into it, but I like the answer. Hey, we thought about it a couple times on a couple rounds. We were trying to make moves. It didn't happen. So we stuck there at where we were, let the board fall to us, look at these players and what they could do and how they can add to our team, and felt very comfortable with what we did. I think that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. So Tom Telesco went into it, felt very calm, cool, and collective. The experience that he had probably allowed him to come out of this draft feeling very comfortable and allowing the board to go to him the way that it did, and not feel panicked or rushed or the need to have to make a move just to make a move, or even going back to the quarterback conversation, having to grab a quarterback just to grab a quarterback. So real quick, I'll go over the undrafted free agent signed and announced by the Raiders, and there could be more, but this is signed and announced so far by the Silver and Black. Carter Bradley, quarterback out of South Alabama. Clark Barrington, the guard out of Baylor, know him very well. Andrew Coker, tackle out of TCU. Jeff Foreman, wide receiver out of Arkansas State. Tamari Fox, defensive tackle out of North Carolina. TJ Franklin, defensive end out of Baylor. I get excited about him. Covered him at Temple High in Temple, Texas. He was teammates with Quentin Johnson, who now is there in L.A. with the Chargers, and also Jared Wiley, who the Chiefs drafted as a tight end out of TCU. They all were Temple Wildcat teammates. So I'm excited to see TJ Franklin. He was a man amongst boys when he was in high school. Obviously, high school is different than the NFL, but he's a guy that, man, he was just a monster. So can't wait to see him at the facility and catch up with him a little bit. Amari Gaynor, defensive end out of North Carolina. DeMarcus Governor, cornerback out of Northern Iowa. Griffin, Laditrek Griffin, wide receiver out of Mississippi State. Jake Johanning, guard out of Furman. Ramel Keaton, wide receiver out of Tennessee. Will Putnam, center out of Clemson. Phelan Sanford, safety out of Nebraska. Noah Shannon, defensive tackle out of Iowa. Jaquan Shepard, cornerback out of Maryland. Ron Stone, defensive end out of Washington State. Going back to Shepard real quick, it's another cornerback from Maryland, right? Jacorian Bennett knows him really well. Rashad Williams, cornerback out of Texas Tech. So with all that being said, the Raiders currently have 87 out of 90 men roster. They have them filled. Doesn't mean that they're going to fill it with 3 more players, but they can. Right, so they have 87 out of 90, and they currently have $18 million in cap space. With over $24 million, they should get post June 1st when Jimmy G's contract comes off the books. So that's as far as the players that were drafted and signed for the Silver and Black over the draft weekend. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before we get to the calls and texts, though, I do want to tell you about Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying, flag on a play. You've already talked about that. But there's so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers. You can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new play-in pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis. You can taunt your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot machine. And there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, go download it now for free at Google Play or the App Store and say game on. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts are that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a call from Raider Meatloaf. He's calling to talk about the draft, his excitement level for who was and who wasn't drafted. Here he is, Raider Meatloaf.
Hey, what's up, Q? It's Raider Meatloaf here. Really excited, probably along with Raider Nation, that the draft's over, and we at the end of the day got some good players, and I'm also really happy to know as well too. I'm sure that they wanted Jaden Daniels, I'm sure, but I think that we just have a coaching staff and a GM that's not willing to break and just draft a quarterback because we wanted Jaden Daniels. I truly feel like they believe that they had a best player approach on the board approach. And we've been barking at, the past drafts for just select the best possible players, stop reaching, stop doing this, stop doing that. And they did. They really, really did. And this is how it turns out. So at the end of the day, I know we got some good players. I'm not trying to say that every single one of them is going to be a starter. I know that there's going to be a lot of, especially those later round guys, a lot of depth pieces. But I think we got some good guys with good heads on their shoulders and guys that are ready to put the work in. So I'm excited. I love the Brock Bowers pick. Him and what's his face? Michael Mayer. They're going to be a good duo. It just only improves our offensive line as well too. It's not just a wide receiver option pick as well too. They can both block. So I'm ecstatic. So really excited. And then now we get to see a great battle between Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. Love it. I love it. It's going to be a really competitive offseason. I can't wait, man. All right, take care.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. I appreciate you. And, yeah, I think the Raiders did really good, man. I'm glad they didn't just reach for a quarterback just to reach for a quarterback and say, oh, yeah, we got one, right? Telesco said after day one they weren't looking at a quarterback. So, the battle should be good between Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell. Both guys are starting quarterbacks. Both guys have won in the league. Obviously, Minshew has more experience, but Aiden O'Connell got better and better as the season went along. And obviously, Antonio Pierce feels very, very comfortable with Aiden O'Connell. So it's going to be interesting to see what that battle looks like during training camp. But that's those guys are going to be QB1 in 2024. Again, 2 guys have won games, so you got to feel comfortable with the direction that the team's going. Do they still need a difference maker quarterback? Sure, but that'll be for another day, and not today. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Raider Rob in H-Town. Q, it's Raider Rob in Houston. Should JPJ be played at center or guard? I heard he was a better center than guard. Then moved James to guard. That's from Raider Rob in Houston. No, and thanks. And he played center really well at Oregon. Fantastic center. But the Raiders told Andre James that he is a center and that they're going to put JPJ there at a guard position. The versatility is there. That's the good thing about it. If Andre James for some reason isn't working out, they could slide JPJ over there. They could slide Dylan Parham over there. But initially, they're going to start him out as guard, right? It's up to Andre James to hold on to his job, and it's up to JPJ to be not a great center, but be a great guard, just like Dylan Parham. But I like the fact that Parham, JPJ, and Andre James all could be starting centers in the NFL, and they're all on the offensive line, and they're all going to be starters in 2024. That's something to get excited about. Raider Rob, thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Nate Glass in Cali. He's calling to talk about the drafting of Brock Bowers and talks about how good of a pick it is and Raider Nation should get excited about it. Here he is, Nate Glass.
Hey, Q, Nate Glass from California, Steeler fan. Just wanted to see if I can calm Raider Nation down a little bit about the Brock Bowers pick. Look, y'all, really, come on, man. This guy is a once-in-a-generation player. This guy is a mismatch no matter where he lines up on the field. Think about it. Aiden O'Connell needs help. You can line this guy up in the slot. You can line this guy up on the outside at wide receiver. This guy can take jet sweeps. If I'm not mistaken, his jet sweeps average was like 10 yards a pop. I mean, damn, Raider Nation. Come on, man. I mean, you guys got a hell of a player. You guys know what tight ends can do in this league. I mean, do I need to go back to the Rob Gronkowski days? Travis Kelce. We know what tight ends can do in this league. And, this guy he's different. He's like I want to say like a Travis Kelce, Deebo Samuel hybrid. I mean, this is a great player. You guys will grow to love him in the long run. But just get you guys got ALC some help. And I love the pick. I didn't think he'll fall there. Like I said before, I had you guys taking Dallas Turner. But I did not have Brock Bowers even on the board at this point. So great pick. Enjoy to love it. And that's it, man. That's all I got to say, man. I'm just I'm happy for you guys. Keep up the good work. Good luck for the rest of the draft. And talk to you soon.
Nate Dogg, thanks for the call, my man. I appreciate you. And yeah, I think it was a big shock initially to Raider Nation and even myself with Bowers. He just wasn't on our radar, wasn't on my radar. That's my fault. I've said that many times. Raider Nation let me know about it. Had a few folks on Twitter that was like losing their mind. Like I was a spawn of Satan because Brock Bowers wasn't on my radar. It just wasn't, right? And he wasn't on anybody's radar. Nobody that covers the team, nobody that, just none of the national guys, nobody thought that Bowers was going to be a guy that was a potential for the Raiders or that the Raiders were even looking at, just because we all knew quarterback, cornerback, offensive line, those were the positions of real need. Well, Tom Telesco told us, last week that it didn't necessarily mean just need that he was going to go after in the draft, and he didn't. But Bowers is a hell of a player, and I think Raider Nation is pretty happy about him at this stage of game. Again, it was just the initial kind of shock that made Raider Nation go, wait, what? I mean, because even me, I didn't even have a good answer to, what was going on initially. But after, a little bit of time thinking about it and realizing how great of a player he is, yeah, there's no doubt, man. There's no doubt that as long as Luke Getsy can get the most out of him, he should be a great player for the Silver and Black. Up next, got a text from JC Raider out of Ogden, Utah. It says, Q, JC Raider out of Ogden. First of all, you do a great job. I've been listening to the pod since day one. After calming down and researching Bowers, I love this pick. It's a lot to put on the guy, but he could be our very next Kittle or Kelce. After getting over the disappointment of not getting a cornerback, I decided to love this draft. Can't wait to see your deep dive on these players. Also, Jackson Powers Johnson played in high school, grew up just a few miles from where I did in Utah, and he and his family are Raider fans. They flipped when he got the call. Sorry for writing you a book. Just excited that JC Raider out of Ogden, Utah. Not a problem, my man. And I like the Jackson Powers Johnson selection a lot. I think he's going to bring a lot of nasty to that Raiders offensive line. It's funny, man. I really like a lot of the players in the draft. Like I mentioned, my favorite one being Eichenberg, but this guy could easily be that dude too, JPJ. You never really say like, hey, man, that guard is my favorite player, but he's a guy that could be really a good player for the Raiders for a long time. I'm excited about what he brings to the table, and we'll see, we'll see what it looks like and what guard position he plays. He could play either left or right. Dylan Parham could play either left or right, and they all could play center, which is good for the versatility and what you need, especially in game time. If a guy like James goes down or something happens and he misses a few plays, one of those guys could slide over and they could feel comfortable about the position. Next up, just got time for a couple more. Nick in Connecticut with a quick call, just giving us a real quick overall recap of the NFL draft.
Hey, Q. This is Nick out in Connecticut. Just wanted to say, man, Tedesco really hit it out the park. I think this is one of the better draft classes that the Raiders have had in a number of years, and I'm excited for the direction that we're heading in. Thanks for all you do, Q. Have a good day.
Nick, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate you. And only time's going to tell how good the draft was, right? But Bowers is a blue chip player. We know that. The ability and the nasty that Jackson Powers Johnson has, that's a good start, right? And then the rest of the guys got to just show up and show out and show what they could bring to the table. And that goes for the undrafted free agents as well. They've got to make their impact on the team. And that there's two immediate starters that the Raiders selected. Everyone else is kind of up in the air. But you would like to see what they could bring to the table as quickly as possible. So they've got their work cut out for them. But I do think that overall the draft was pretty promising for the Raiders. Got time. Let's see. Take this text from CP and Dago. Said, what's up, Q? I'm excited for our 2024 draft class. Only time will tell if they will be hit or misses. That being said, I'm over-listening to experts say that we lost or failed in the draft because we didn't address the quarterback situation. I think it would be a fail if we overdrafted a quarterback just for the sake of drafting a quarterback. Tommy T said that they considered a few quarterbacks in the first round, but when they went elsewhere, they didn't look at a quarterback position as something that needs to be filled with just anyone. His discipline and expertise in the draft is a breath of fresh air when comparing to previous GMs. Thanks for all that you do, Q. That's CP and Dago. And, yeah, that's the biggest key, man. That is the biggest key right there. They didn't force the issue just because they felt like they had to. And that's sometimes you can get caught up in that. Not just, GMs in the NFL, but just in life. You feel like you have to do something, so you just do it. And it's not something that you really believe in. If they went and got a Spencer Rattler and didn't believe he was any better than Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, then what are you doing, right? If they didn't think Jordan Travis could be in the long run better than Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, then what are you doing? I love the fact that they didn't just force it just because everyone, including myself, said, oh, you got to go get a dynamic quarterback. You got to get that guy. They're like, yeah, we're comfortable with Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. And that's why the signing of Minshew was so important. It was that insurance that the Raiders needed, that, okay, we've got two guys capable of starting and winning games in the NFL, just in case we don't go get our alpha dog cornerback, our guy that we think can, really be the leader in the face of our franchise for years to go. And they didn't. And that's okay, right? So Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew will be leading the charge in 2024. I know it's going to take us over a little bit. We'll get one more quick call. Rich in the 831 is calling to talk about why he's excited about what the Raiders did in the draft and the approach that they took. Here he is, Rich in the 831.
Hey, Q, it's Rich from the 831, man. Super excited about this draft. And I don't mean that in like a way of like, hey, we got some crazy, I just think that Telesco drafted against himself. He wasn't trying to be smarter than the room, or he wasn't trying to reach for a player because we had a position of need that wasn't going to pan out anyway. And I think Raider fans aren't used to that. They aren't used to that type of like draft where it's kind of like boring. But boring can be good sometimes, right? Kind of like that good restaurant you go to, right? That, it's not exciting, but it's good food, man. It's boring, but it's good food. And I think the Raiders did that, and they didn't draft a quarterback, but that's okay. I think they knew that having Gardner, and how smart is that now, having Gardner, and then you have Aiden O'Connell, and I mean you're just kind of ready to roll right there. I know there's gonna be some fans that are kind of like, man, we really didn't do much, but I mean, in my personal opinion, when's the last time we had a generational talent drafted? And I mean, Josh Jacobs isn't a generational talent. He's not Marshall Faulk or, like Adrian Peterson or someone of that nature. And I think the Raiders got one in Bowers. Bowers is generational talent, in my personal opinion. He's like a Tony Gonzalez. He's like a, I hate to say it, man, but Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski. He's someone that's generational. And we haven't had that in a long time. But I'm curious to hear your take on it. Your take on this draft, man. Got my daughter coming up to me now, so I got to kind of end this call a little short, bro. But you know what, man? I'm excited. We're not used to this. I'm not saying it's something great, but I'm saying it's something that we should probably get used to, man. This is what good teams do. They just kind of have boring drafts, but they're good down the road. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah, man. Curious to hear your thoughts. Go Raiders! I got my daughter right here just pounding on me like, hey, let's go. So yeah, man. Go Raiders! I'm okay with everything. Appreciate all you do. All right, bro. Out.
Thank you for the call, my man. I appreciate you. And yeah, again, it feels like this draft class was solid. You know, guys that could help contribute, improve the team, even on special teams, right? It'd be nice to get used to draft classes that you just expect to be solid. Like Baltimore Ravens fans, they have to be the most spoiled fans ever because they just know that their draft's going to be solid. Oh yeah, it's going to be a good draft class. Like we all get excited, for the Raiders draft, but we never know. We never know what's going to happen. Are we going to be disappointed? Are we going to be scratching our head and say, who the hell was that? What's going to happen? You want to get used to just being like, yeah, it's the draft. Yeah, we're going to get 7 or 8 solid players, and 3 or 4 of them are going to end up being starters, and one's going to be a star, and we're going to let a guy go because another guy's there to fill a void. Like that's what you want to become, second nature. The Raiders haven't had that in, I don't know, forever. Right? I'm not used to the Raiders having a great draft, and we don't know if the Raiders are going to have a great draft yet, right? I remember 2014 when Reggie McKenzie pulled that fantastic draft, right? And then you were hoping that, okay, the next year's draft is going to be fantastic. It wasn't. The next year's draft, it wasn't, right? I mean, so you want to have consistent good drafts. So, again, on paper, this one looks like a really good one. We won't know how good it is for some time, but want to get used to seeing solid, feel-good drafts, and then you start to see what comes from that. But all in all, like you said, it looks to be really solid. Thanks so much for that call. I do appreciate you. That's going to do it for today's show. A little bit longer than it's supposed to be, but I'm back at home. I'm back at home, and it's exciting, right? Something to get super fired up about. I'm not in Detroit. I'm not in some Airbnb. I'm back in the crib, man. I'm back at the house, and I couldn't be more excited about that. Of course, we'll be back on Raider Nation Radio later on this afternoon. So coming up tomorrow, we'll have more calls and texts. We'll have more news and notes. We'll start to deep dive into all the players that were selected, start to get some experts that cover these guys on to talk about exactly what they bring to the table and a whole lot more. So next few weeks, going over these players and what they can bring to the table will be a lot of fun. So tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.